What's up, everyone? First live. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Let me know if you can't in the comments. The first time I've tried to do something like this, so we'll see how it goes. I'm looking to be on for maybe 30 minutes to an hour today, just to play around and test a few things. There's a few updates I want to give with regard to some of the topics I've spoken to in the last few days that I think might be pretty interesting for some of you guys. So just let me know if you can hear me, and then maybe we can get started. Perfect, thank you. I'm just going to play around with the comments as well. I've not used StreamYard before. See, easy to do, show up on screen. How you been, Patches? You're a good regular of the channel, always see you commenting, which is good to see. Not sure if there's like a big delay with the comments coming through either, so just bear with me, thank you. Oh, this is super easy to do. Don't know what I was stressing about. How's it going, Ashton's Cardboard Circus? Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. My daughter actually had a terrible night last night. She's, I think, got the cold or the flu or something, and she was basically up. So I'm on like 2 hours sleep. So just bear with me if I'm looking a bit tired. I'm probably going to look to try and do this on a weekly basis, or at least fortnightly. I want to try and maybe replace my weekly news videos with this. So basically just talk to some of these recaps and some of these topics live, and then have you guys, share your thoughts throughout the comments. And then also, I want to try and get some collectors on here and start talking about, a few things, either, some commentary on the hobby and things that, might be questionable, some concerns that people have, or even then just talk to whatever that person's interested in also collecting. But I think I want to get, the main talking points with these lives being around, sharing collecting stories that people have with each other and getting some good insights. As I'm sure, all of you know, as I've talked to in other videos before, the stories about, why we collect or why we like certain players or why we PC certain things is a really exciting thing to share. So I want to try and get more people talking about that kind of stuff, specifically on, some of the earliest memories and things like that. So it looks like we've got a few people now. We can get started. How's it going, Smack Daddy? Hope you're doing well as well. So I want to share a few things based on some updates we have with these duplicate one-of-ones first, and then we'll jump into some Q&A towards the end. Just bear with me as I get my stuff ready to go. All right, you guys can see the update on my screen. I've got a logo on my face, so I'll need to move that for another video. But if you guys recall, we did talk about these two Lamar Jackson one-of-ones over the last week, and how it looks as though Panini have made a duplicate, right? And the main concern being is the one, on top graded by BGS. The patch itself looks a little bit suspect, and it doesn't match any patch that we've seen, in the product for any player in that set, right? And it came to sort of light because this was pulled by, I think it was Pool Bangers in a break in the last week. And then obviously lots of questions came off the back of that because there's only meant to be one shield per player. Now, the thing that's interesting with this is that since, that came to light, we then also talked about how there appears to be a second duplicate for Lamar Jackson in a different insert for this set. And again, the one graded by BGS looks like it has a very dodgy, shield that doesn't match anything else. And, I want to reiterate again, the shields all look the same. They all look like the one on top, right? With every other player in this set, they all look like this. So the fact that Lamar Jackson is the only one that appears to have duplicate shields is, pretty concerning, and it looks very suspect considering those shields don't match anything else. The thing I want to flag right now that's sort of come to light that I did a community post on the other day, and apologies, you guys can't see my face because that stupid logo there. But this card popped up, right? And one of the things that we had concerns about was that, one of these was meant to be a laundry tag, and Panini just happened to produce two shields by mistake, right? But because this laundry tag has since come to light, we've got a little bit more of an insight as to what may have gone wrong, right? Because for this specific insert, and as is the case with every other player, right, excluding Lamar Jackson, obviously, the laundry tag and the shield are meant to be the red cards. So the question then comes, this, second one that's graded by BGS, did they make two shields by mistake, or did they forget to put, the tag in this one? Given that we now see the tag, it raises a few questions around whether or not that's patch swapped. Now, to give a little bit more clarification, the blues in this specific insert are meant to be for the team logo one-of-one. So every other player will just have their team patch in that one-of-one, right? For some reason, the laundry tag is in the blue. So either someone out at Panini has made a pretty big mistake and they've accidentally made two shields and they've put the laundry tag in the wrong card, or what I think has happened, given how fake this shield looks, and given that it doesn't match anything else for any other player, I reckon Panini put the team logo into this card, and because it was on the red insert, somebody noticed that, they bought the card or either hit the card themselves and have done a patch swap. That's my gut feeling right now, because like I said, every single other player in that insert has the team logo on this card. So given that Panini put the laundry tag here, it makes me think, they maybe put the team logo in this one and somebody's caught on that the red was meant to have the shield and they thought they could get away with it. It's pretty interesting. So keen to get your thoughts on that one. PWCC have, reached out to me and they've basically said they're going to look into it, which is, really good. It just comes down to whether or not we actually get an answer, because knowing, Panini, we're not going to get a response from them. I've emailed their CEO. It's pretty concerning in my opinion, but it is what it is. So keen to get your thoughts, on that, and whether or not you sort of agree with me in that you think that shield, given that it looks so fake, it is a patch swap card. I know I'm talking in circles now, but given that we've seen that laundry tag now, I think it gives us comfort that it's probably less likely a Panini error and more likely some kind of, hanky-panky. So can you get your thoughts on that? I'll quickly jump through a few of the comments. So we've got one here from Elong87. Going by my knowledge of Australian time, which is in March, my guess is that you're not in Perth. No, definitely not. I'm in Sydney. If I was in Perth, I think they're like 3.5 hours behind. It always gets confusing with daylight savings, so it'd still be very, very early if it was Perth. Perth makes it, apart from being so far away from the rest of the country, they're pretty good for time zones when it comes to, US sports, and especially, the English Premier League and stuff like that, if you're a big fan of soccer, because the start times when you're in Sydney are way too early in the morning to sort of watch it consistently, especially if you've got, a young family. Patches talks about duplicates, having a pick of Mike Trout, Red Sterling 1 of 1. Know the guy that has hit it in a grade 1 sold for 250k. We checked his 1 of 1 hologram and it came up as a real auto, isn't printed, it isn't. I think I missed some of what you're trying to say there, but duplicate cards are nothing new, right? They've been around in the hobby for a long time. They're, like I said, nothing new. It's just concerning to see it happen with such high-end product, because you'd imagine, the quality control would be a lot better with that kind of stuff. I really wish, Panini or Topps or these manufacturers look to, image these cards before they put them in boxes, like take photos of them and have them stored online, because can you imagine as a collector having, hit a really big card and you're concerned that maybe, or you want to buy one of these cards, right? And you're concerned it might have been patch swapped or something along those lines. How cool would it be to have, a system or a portal you could log into with Panini or Topps and say, okay, this is the card I want. Show me what it looks like. Oh, this is exactly what it looks like when it was, manufactured by your company. Hang on a minute, it doesn't match what I'm looking at here. What's going on? That's a really cool thing that they should look to implement, in my opinion, because these cards are so freaking expensive that, Lamar Jackson that I showed you that was graded by BGS, the first one that was the Shield Auto, sold for $35,000 USD in August last year. That's not chump change, right? Somebody was out there and paid big money for a card that they thought was a, true 1 of 1 masterpiece, as was described in the PWCC description, and now they're, sort of shit out of luck with it, right? And basically stuck with a card that's now most likely got a duplicate, or that it's now tarnished because somebody's patch swapped it. So it's pretty, concerning once again, but, this stuff happens, right? So shouldn't be overly surprised, to be honest. Now, in terms of one other thing I wanted to quickly flag today, it's actually, again, very interesting and relates to what appears to be a fake Messi card. I don't think it's a rookie. Maybe it is. I don't know too much about it, to be honest, and I don't want to say it is when it's not. But if we jump back to my screen, I guess it is a rookie because it does say that it is the Mega Cracks Messi. So this one's interesting. So a few people have sort of raised this to me in the last few days, and essentially it was listed by DC Sports for consignment on eBay. And when these cards sort of pop up, as we've talked to before, there are so many of these that have been faked in the past that soccer collectors typically, raise a lot of questions, irrespective of how many have been printed or graded. It's just one that's commonly faked. And what is a really poor fallacy for a lot of people in the hobby is that they see PSA and they immediately think the card is genuine, okay? And in this specific instance, it looked like that happened. A few people did some research, including somebody that I'm likely to have on the channel in the next few weeks to talk about some really important things, clued on relatively quickly that when you look at the registry for this on PSA's website, the card itself, it doesn't match. It looks very, very different to this one. The print quality looks very, very different. Now, the Blake58, who we've talked to before on this channel, raised it in an Instagram post today, and he essentially talked to how it's likely a crack. Basically, somebody's cracked a slab, taken the card out and put a fake one in there. As my mate Russell Westbrook cards did clarify, is that the slab is actually fake, and it's more than likely the label is fake as well. So somebody's just taken, you know, a fake card, fake PSA slab, a fake label, found the real serial number, put it on their fake label, and basically now trying to pass this off as, you know, a genuine Messi rookie card, which is pretty concerning, but it's nothing new for the soccer space, right? This sort of shit happens all the time. It's why your sort of messaging should be, you need to, you know, look at these PSA certs and things like that when you're looking to buy a high-end card to not get screwed over, right? Because even something as simple as this, it's full DC Sports for the time being. We've since contacted them and they're, you know, looking to, you know, take it down. PSA have already decertified it, but again, this stuff happens all the time. You just need to be on your toes and make sure that you're sort of, you know, checking this kind of stuff before you buy it, because people are doing hanky-panky left, right, and center. So it is, you know, what it is. We'll jump to Brennan Ryan's comment. At the very least, Panini should buy the duplicates and destroy them out of the population. Like, yeah, I agree with that, especially if they've made the error, right? And they need to sort of make things right for that specific customer. You know, it was good to see, at least I think I said that PWCC got back to me and are looking into it. BGS have been silent. Panini have been silent. I've emailed the CEO of Panini, to be honest, because everybody else that I messaged and contacted couldn't get back to me in time. Well, not in time, but couldn't get back to me at all, to be honest. PWCC responded very, very quickly, which is, you know, good to see. They've had their issues in the past, and I did tell them that when they did message me, but I basically said, you know, you guys communicating on this so quickly is a good thing. Not many others do this, like irrespective of all the other BS that your company does. It's good that you're looking to try and make this right. So we'll sort of play it by ear to see what happens. But if it is a Panini error, like I 100% agree, they should be, you know, buying that card and then basically destroying it. Somebody's paid $35,000 USD for that card. That's a pretty big, you know, stuff up in my opinion. If it is a mistake by Panini, it's utterly, you know, ridiculous. And like Smack Daddy says here, to me, it's just crazy they don't say anything about it. They just stay quiet. Exactly what I just touched on, right? These businesses don't want to talk. They don't want to like acknowledge this kind of stuff, which I've talked to in the past around being a really poor position to take. Like, I understand you want to try and save face for your business and sort of, you know, not acknowledge this kind of stuff because you're scared it might impact your business. But at the same time, it's like if you acknowledge it and you call it out and people can sort of, you know, see it for themselves, that's going to show you to your customers that you want to try and make, you know, your business better, right? You're acknowledging this error. We've made a big mistake. This is what we're going to do to try and fix it, right? By hiding it, it just speaks to a really poor narrative and, you know, speaks to them maybe not actually giving a shit about you as a customer, right? And that might not be true, but, you know, that's how it gets perceived by us as collectors, as customers. It's not good. That's also a good point here from Elon. Maybe got the Kurtz Card Care special. Probably, I think a lot of cards do, which really annoys me. I don't like Kurtz Card Care stuff at all, and it's very concerning to see him now start touching, you know, Babe Ruth vintage cards and things like that. I don't like the fact that he hides his serial numbers. I'll go back and say what I said when I talked about this, as did AIH Sports, who I see has commented as well. You know, these guys do this stuff to their cards. They molest their cards essentially, right? And they think it's perfectly fine, but then when it comes to sell it or when it comes to show it off on social media, they don't show you the serial number. That should tell you all you need to know about that person's intentions, in my opinion. Now, Kurtz Card Care could be genuine in his approach. I've had conversations with him. He doesn't think it's wrong. He's not trying to do anything nefarious according to himself. But if that is the case, why are you hiding the serial numbers? Like, I think you should just be open and honest about the whole thing. And the reason, like we've talked about, you know, many times, the reason why you're not showing it is because you want to try and make as much money off that one sale as possible. We've got a comment here from Raul, AIH Sports. I messaged PWCC and they said PSA graded the card for a vid. I did. They ignored what I said, and Coach Co said about the alleged trimmed Conor McDavid card. Are you referring to the Messi that I just showed, Raul, or a different card? It's like these mistakes. I don't understand why they're so shy about the whole thing and why they hide away. Like, be open, be honest, acknowledge these errors, because you as a business, if you all of a sudden say, okay, you guys, we, you know, stuffed up, people are going to hold you accountable now. That tells me that you want to try and be better, right? By hiding these things, making people sign NDAs, you know, as PSA have done in the past when it comes to errors. Like, what are you trying to solve there? Who cares if people come out and say, PSA, you suck? Who cares, BGS? BGS, you suck. PWCC, you suck. Who cares? If you make an error, people are going to be quite positive towards you about trying to fix it, right? Like, look at SGC, Pete. SGC have a lot of issues, and I've talked to those as well. but at least their CEO sort of comes out and says, guys, we created this fake Pokemon card. This is what we're trying to do to make our process better. Like, be transparent, be open, be honest. That's what, modern business dictates and requires for you. As a business, right? You need to be doing those kinds of things. And I'm mumbling now, but you guys get the point of what I'm trying to say. Patrick, I think Luden is how you pronounce your surname. Apologies if I got that wrong. Do you think their QC declining more than usual the past year or two? Because, yeah, I definitely think, their QC has taken a dive. And I'm not sure if it's directly because they're not caring. I think it's a subsequent a result of them having to pump so much more product. I think they're just printing things to death and they don't care. So they just keep pumping it out because they know people are going to pay top dollar for it. And I think it's only going to get worse. And what's disappointing about this is it doesn't look like Topps is getting off on the right foot either. Like, we've seen those Wemby Topps Now autos with the Dutch auction start at $4,000, and there's so many parallels. There's like 400 or 500 of them already, and I think it ended up at like $1,500 or something. Like, even these guys have come out of the gates and printed, crap to death. It's like, what are you doing as a business? You've seen what Panini stuffed up, and now Topps yourself are coming out and sort of, crapping the bed yourself with regards to overprinting and all that sort of stuff. Got a comment here from Carlos. Cleaning cards is like cleaning coins. Grading companies destroyed coin collecting in the 1980s. We're reaching the same point. I completely agree. It's an interesting one because when you look at things like comic books, I've used that comparison before too. Cleaning services used to be probably more frowned upon than they are for cards at the moment, right? Comics was so much more, it was treated so much more poorly is the word I'm looking for. And, CGC noticed a lot of issues, and they noticed them so much so that they started to offer qualified labels for restored cards and restored books and altered books and all that sort of stuff. And they started leaving very detailed notes to give you, a buyer, all the transparency you need to make a purchase, right? And now they've also started coming out and pressing books, which was big taboo problems in the past. It's just weird. And I think it's definitely going to reach that point. I think I made a statement that I think in, 12 to 24 months, we might see not trimming, but we'll see card cleaning in some capacity be normalized, and these graders will be okay with it. And, while that might not be too bad in the grand scheme of things, the thing that scares me about that is, when things become normalized, what then becomes sort of taboo gets a little bit closer to also then becoming normalized, right? So if cleaning becomes normalized and using wax and chemicals to clean a card becomes okay, what's to stop, the next step being, trimming cards is okay. Recoloring cards is okay. All that sort of stuff will slowly shift more and more towards, being okay. So that's my thoughts on it. I think it's pretty concerning. And I'm really keen to get your thoughts on this in the comments. Now, we've got Mikey G. He has it going, mate. Dan the man. I'm not the man, but I appreciate it. Brendan Ryan, the fact you have to ask which card speaks volumes about how bad. Exactly. Exactly. And that's where some of these problems come, right? Where it's just, you don't know what to believe anymore because we see so many mistakes across the board. It's sort of hard to sort of, work out what's real, what's not, what's a correct error, what's been altered, all that sort of stuff. It just gets, really messy. So Raul's back, different card last year. Asked him about an alleged trimmed Conor McDavid hockey card. We had proof it was probably altered. It confronted PWCC and they looked the other way. And again, that's not a surprise, right? And PWCC have this issue. So if you go back to, my video that I did where we talked about, the really big soccer syndicate, and it was people cracking slabs, replacing cards, printing fake cards, getting them graded by BGS, selling them on PWCC. That problem was so freaking pervasive. And the big issue with this, as we talked about last week actually with PWCC, is they put all the blame on BGS. So even though they, as an auction house, give you comfort as a buyer because they're respected, right, in the industry, irrespective of their, all their allegations, right? They are respected by buyers to the point where people want to, use their service. So they sort of ignore that and say, well, no, if you have a mistake or you have a concern about a card and it's graded, go to BGS, go to PSA. It's like, no, PWCC, you need to take some accountability with these kinds of things. And when you're saying they look the other way, that's no surprise at all. And it's a really poor thing. So even though I said they're doing a really good job by, communicating to me and being transparent about this Lamar Jackson issue, they've still got a long way to go if they want to be, better moving forward. And for the most part, they do far more harm than good for the hobby, in my opinion. We've got Sally Hawk over here. You're going to be happy with that Wemby card if his career goes well. That's true. But like we talk about any other prospect, how good does his career have to go in order for that card to be, worth a lot more than what you've paid? especially with some of these other prospects where you got, Luca's Logo Man RPA selling for, over $1 million or whatever it was. What does Luca have to do in his career for that card to maintain its value, firstly, moving forward, but also to then earn a profitable return in the future? Like, it's not going to happen. If you look at, Hall of Famers, Kobe cards don't sell for that much. LeBron's cards rarely sell for that much, outside of, the pump and dump period. Jordan, yes, he does, but Jordan is on another level. It's just weird how people place so much emphasis on prospects being valuable long term when you're already paying more money for them than what proven players are already capturing. And it's a cycle, right? I'm sure for the guys that have been collectors their whole life, you sort of see this stuff yourself. Like when I started getting into hobby boxes in 2013, I was gobsmacked at this kind of stuff. I was seeing people pay ridiculous prices for Victor Oladipo, and what's his card prices now? It's insane. It'll never click in my head as being something that's sort of worth chasing or worth paying big money for. Like, my recommendation is if somebody hits one of those cards in a break or you hit it in a pack, sell that freaking thing immediately. Cash in on the hype, because I'd be shocked. I'd be really keen for somebody to show me a prospect that started off being incredibly expensive that has returned a profit today. I don't think there's many of them. We've got another comment here from Carlos. Do you think the fraud that happened with Wada Games, a grading company, and Heritage Auctions, an auction company, is already happening with PSA? I'm not sure. Do you mind sharing the details on that? Is that the one when it had fake games being graded and then sold? There's definitely opportunity for that kind of thing to happen when it comes to PSA and Golden. I've talked to the fact that I'm an external auditor, so I look at business processes all the time, and when it comes to monopolies like this, or where a business can sort of have control over the whole supply chain of something, like let's say, they sell you cards, let's say they were manufacturers as well, and then they basically grade it for you and they sell that same grade on their auction house, and they know that if it's a higher grade, they can make more money from you by selling it on the auction house. That's a huge conflict of interest, and you need to have really strong business processes around segregation of duties and all that kind of stuff in that process to avoid those kinds of things happening. So do I think it's happening? It's hard to say, but common sense would say it's probably happening in some capacity somewhere, right? You can't sort of shy away from that stuff, especially when you've got people involved with the process whose KPIs and bonuses and career relies on the success of these businesses, right? It just gets really messy when you're not being very clear and having a good segregation of duties across that supply chain. So I'm talking in circles, but you guys get what I'm saying. Anything owned by Fanatics is bad quality. Yes, 100%. This is what a lot of people, I should say, were talking about when they first acquired the licenses. People referred to things like lids and, their jersey manufacturing and all that or other sort of stuff where it's just very questionable. And I think like the things we've seen from Fanatics in the last week or so should concern a lot of people, because when they first had the announcement around what they were planning to do with Topps, 18 months ago, whenever it was, they spoke about less redemptions, less parallels. They want to bring the collector back. They want to save the local card shop. And then the news in the last week literally shits on every single one of those things. They've released more redemptions. Like the Wemby they announced as in the Bowman Inception University, I think it was, talked about him being a card in that set, and he's a redemption, right? You've got these negative parallels that are coming from them now. You've just got, it's a mess. So I know it takes time to fix this sort of stuff, but so far they've sort of come out and done everything they said they wouldn't, in my opinion. So it is pretty crazy, pretty dumb as well. The cleaning fingerprints off should be treated the same, shouldn't do it. Like I'm not going to begrudge someone for thinking that, right? Like I will wipe a fingerprint off a card with a microfiber cloth, but that's where my, altering ends. Like anything else, in my opinion, you are molesting that card. You're not doing, or you're not showing a true representation of that card. When we're looking at why cards maintain value, it's because they were old. Kids didn't keep them in pristine condition. They played with them. They threw them around. They sort of lasted the test of time. So by you trying to trim that card, use chemicals on that, sort of other tools to round edges or flatten edges, I should say, and fix rounded corners, it's crazy. I don't understand how people can think it's okay. If you want to do it, do it, but make sure you bloody disclose it when you're going to sell it. Altering coins is peak taboo. It is. Because again, people want something in pristine condition that's lasted the test of time. That's why you place a value on it. And when people do these things to try and deceive, they're doing it to try and maximize the dollar figure, and they know it's a bad thing, which is why they don't disclose it, which is pretty concerning. I think I talked to this in the past as well when it comes to junk wax errors. I think it's a junk slab error. Obviously, I think lots of people have talked to that as well. I wouldn't say it started to begin. I think it's already begun, to be honest. The print volumes are crazy. If you want to see a video on serial numbers, go look at what I talked about. I think it was like a month ago now, where we spoke about how, irrespective of a player having, a card out of 100, people see that and they think, oh wow, he's got a card about 100. That's really rare. But when you're factoring all the other cards from all the other products from that 1 year alone, it's technically out of 2,000, 3,000. It's just nothing is as rare as people think it is, and it's just concerning to sort of see the narrative from a lot of influential people within this space push these kinds of things. If you're looking to get value out of these cards long term, obviously some of these things will maintain value, but you need to go very, very short printed. You need to go very targeted with what it is you're chasing. I've also talked in the past about, why I think certain cards should be more valuable than others, right? If you've got LeBron, how many years of Prism have there been? What, 11, 12 now? Maybe 10? So he has a gold card in every single one of those, and now you've got different parallels that are also gold. So you're probably talking about gold cards just for Prism for LeBron, talking well over 1,000. Which ones are going to be valuable long term? Like if you think in 50 years' time, people are going to be interested in buying, a seventh year LeBron gold Prism, like why would they want that? So you need to be targeted with what you're chasing, in my opinion. I chase things that are championship related, right? So if a team wins a championship that season that card was released, I think that's more valuable. It is for me as a collector, because I sit back and say, oh, that's awesome. I want that. I'm a fan of this. I'm doing that right now with see if I got the card here, actually. I don't think I do. With my soccer staff, I'm Italian, as I'm sure many of you know, and they won the Euros in 2022. So with that set, I'm going out and buying, or 2020, I should say, not 2022. I'm going out and buying the Rambo for every single one of those Italian players because they won the tournament. That stuff is cool for me. So I'm going on a tangent again, but again, you get the point. So this is a very interesting one. Let me just grab a quick drink. Pepsi Max, we need to be a sponsor. Oh shit, lots of talking. So yeah, this is an interesting one, right? When you look at the department, it doesn't do a whole lot of what people think it does. Like we talked about with a few weeks ago, I think it was a fake soccer card that was listed. I don't remember off the top of my head right now, but I did a video on it 1 or 2 weeks ago, and their fraud department basically came out and said, we know BGS has issues grading these cards. We know the community knows they're fake. We think it's fake, but BGS don't. So it's their problem. And it's like, no guys, if you've got a department targeted to detect fakes, okay, you have an obligation to your customers to make sure those fakes don't land on your platform. So when they're sort of sitting back and saying those things, well, BGS know about it and there's not much we can do. It's like, yes, you can do. If you know BGS have an issue with grading, these types of cards and they're more often they're not faked and BGS can't detect it, why are you listing those BGS cards on your platform? So, like, I agree with you, exactly what you just said, right? They blame the graders for fakes. So what is the point of employing people to find fakes? Exactly. I didn't read the rest of your comments, so I do apologize, but that's exactly what I was, talking to. It's just crazy. I don't understand in what world you as a business can have customers rely on your platform to buy goods from you that they trust you for. And then when something happens or you're aware of something, you can say, well, we know it's an issue, but it's BGS's problem. They won't do anything about it. Don't list BGS cards on your freaking platform. It's not that freaking hard, guys. Sally Hawk or Solly Hawk, how's it going? Carlos Be Good, YouTuber Carl Jobs made a full documentary. I'll take a look after this. Actually, that's pretty interesting. I think those kinds of things are pretty pervasive, to be honest, in this space. We've seen issues, for decades when it comes to auction houses. So it doesn't surprise me that this sort of stuff pops up. So this is an interesting one. I've got a friend, Steve Splendor, who is a big Joker fan. He's got some pretty cool, he's got one in particular, really cool flawless Joker card, gold, if I remember correctly. I think it's an interesting one. And this thing should tell a lot of people about what the price of their cards might look like moving forward. Because he is someone who is dominating stats. He's won 2 MVPs. He's won a finals MVP. He just dominated this final series, right? And his card prices barely saw an uptick. So again, when you're looking at these players that are sort of prospected on, what are they going to have to do to, number one, be better than Joker, and then number two, be better than the GOATs of the sport to then, maintain those values moving forward? I think it's crazy that you have a player like him whose cards don't get an uptick when he's as dominant as what he actually is. Now, I know there's more to sport than just, success on the field. Culture comes into it, and also the impact these players have on culture also comes into it. But like that should concern a lot of people when you're looking at a player dominate like him and sort of not really get anywhere from a pricing perspective. It's a little bit crazy what people seem to value over others. It's not driven by, stats or anything like that. I think it's just driven by hype most of the time. How's it going? Collector's dream. Like Pat just said, and like I talked a bit earlier, they've basically kickstarted another junk wax era. I think like they're sort of giving fuel to the fire that Panini already started during the pandemic, unfortunately, which is really really unfortunate. But again, if you're a collector, it shouldn't impact you too much, because whilst you maybe can't afford the product given that it's so overpriced, at least it means you can probably get the cards of the players that you actually want and you want to try and PC, right? It's never been, in my opinion, cheaper to buy like good level inserts for your cards that you think, or for your collections that you think look cool. Like grading is always subjective, right? I think it just comes down to your personal preference. I get some things graded. I've got some stuff over on the shelf there that are Dragon Ball Z related. I don't do it for value. If you want to sell the card, sure, go ahead and do it. But if you want the card for your PC and you want to get it slabbed, I'm all for that as well. I'm not going to hate on anyone for chasing things that are graded or getting things graded for themselves. I think it's cool from a preservation perspective as well. But again, I think the prices are too high from these graders. Ashen's Cardboard Circus, junk slab error for sure. I would agree with that. I'll give another one because I'm the one who just said it, so it'll ignore me. I'm an idiot. I'm an awkward guy, so bear with me. All the graded base of veteran players made no sense. They'll never recover the... Yeah, like it's crazy. So I just spoke about working on the rainbow for my select Euro. Let me grab a couple actually, because I have some in my drawer over here. So I've got a few here that I'm buying graded. I want to get them more graded eventually, because I'd like to move that Parramatta jersey that's over my shoulder and have all the rainbow there for every single player on my on the wall. But I'm buying some that are graded, right? So you got a Emerson over here. That's a purple at a PSA 10. I've got an Insigne. It's a bit hard to see because of the glare. That's a PSA 10 as well in the orange. A Jorginho in the maroon, which is out of, I think, 199. That's a PSA 10 as well. And then a Bernardeschi in the blue. So these are some of them. The rest of them are sitting in the States. But the reason why I showed those, and goes to your comment, I got all of these for less than the grading fee themselves, which is, it's good for me, but just I don't understand what people are doing by sending that shit in. What are you hoping to do? You've got a base card and you want to try and make a recovery on that. Like I've just bought a bunch of pretty cool parallels that kind of get more money back than the grading fee itself. It's just pretty funny. Yeah, exactly. $5-10 at shops now. I think you're going to see, I think the way things are going, I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing a lot more slabs in dollar bins either, because it's pretty laughable in my opinion. It's just crazy what people are holding on to and what they're getting graded. So it's not a surprise for anyone, right? Because you're seeing it all for yourselves. MVP season cards are worth buying. I agree. That goes to the same sort of thing. So like those Italy cards I just showed you, it's all about the story. Like the story is part of the reason why we collect, right? Like I've got some flawless soccer cards here that I'm actually going to get graded because I want to again maybe get a frame made up for these. But like there's a Ivanovic is a flawless boot relic auto out of 15. Sorry for the glare. But this is pretty cool because he's a Chelsea player. I'm a Chelsea supporter. He was quite instrumental in Chelsea winning a few titles. He was quite instrumental in us winning our first, Champions League. So stuff like that just has a really cool meaning. So when I'm sitting there looking at my cards like a loser in the dark, I can sit back and think, well, that's awesome. He actually did something for my team, and it's all game use stuff. It's a really cool connection you can have with that thing. And I think, the more cards get printed and the more stuff gets watered down, this is the kind of thing that I think people will cling on to moving forward. You're not going to have instances like you had from the 50s and 60s where none of this stuff lasts 50 years, right? You're going to have probably 90% of these things remain in the next 50 years. So you need to find the things, in my opinion, that distinguish them from everything else. And things like MVP season cards, championship winning seasons, or cool things like, I know Steve Splendor, who might be watching, when I was on a live stream with the Sports Card Therapist, he had a LeBron James, I think it was an X-Fractor, and it was when he had, I think, the facial injury, so he was wearing the face mask on the card, and that's, I think, the only card where that was pictured in his career, which, again, is something cool. It's distinct, it's unique, it's something that sort of stands out from the crowd, and there are so many freaking cards that are, all look the same these days, printed to death. You need to find the things that are going to stand the test of time, and because the cards themselves are going to last forever, because people keep them in pristine condition, they're getting base cards graded, this is the stuff you sort of need to target, in my opinion. How's it going, Philly Joe? Good to have you here. Always enjoy seeing you around in the comments. I don't think they do. When it comes to their authentication service, I believe the auto and mem is not checked by them. They rely on the company themselves. So when you look on the back of a card, it'll basically say the autograph and the memorabilia is certified by the manufacturer. They don't look into that, and the graders don't either. So if you have an issue where Panini may put a fake patch in a card, and then you have that graded by PSA, and then you go to PSA, you're not going to get a guarantee back from them because the error was on Panini, right? But if the card was patch swapped and then PSA graded, and then you find out and you go back to PSA, then they'll offer you a guarantee. These graders, these authentication services don't authenticate the autos or the patch unless you're specifically paying for an autograph authentication service, which not a lot of people know about, which is a bit concerning because people get caught off guard thinking they've got a bit more protection than what they actually have. Topps World Series insert set is always worth getting as is Topps Now milestone releases. I'm not big on Topps Now. I don't know a whole lot about baseball, but I trust your gut on this one. Love the content. How's Para doing? We played really well yesterday. It's a nice display picture you got there. We did really well. I think we were up 42-4 at halftime. The second half was deplorable. They broke the record yesterday for the most points scored by our team in the first half, which is a record that's the club's been around since 1947, so that's a pretty big achievement. But the second half was quite poor. But at the end of the day, a win's a win, right? Get the 2 points. We've won 5 in a row now, heading into a bye weekend. So priming ourselves quite good for this season, given the number of injuries we've had. I don't think he's going to become a fatty. Like, he is somebody that is very switched on, in my opinion. He seems to be someone that is very motivated. He wants to be the best. Being from that region of Europe, myself, my heritage, I know what people are like from that area, and they take things like this very seriously, right? They treat their careers very seriously. He might turn out to be a fatty, but just based on the cultural element, I very much doubt that happens. They're very ruthless when it comes to wanting to be the best. Apologies, I'm quite far behind on the comments. I'll try and catch up. Splendor, he's not a pumpkin. He's a good guy. It's because he has a weird... I don't understand what you mean by that in terms of what getting fat. I think it goes to what I said a bit earlier. That region of Europe, they're quite competitive. They're quite passionate about this sort of stuff. They're quite ruthless, very old school when it comes to maintaining beliefs and values. So I don't think he's going to be somebody that sort of falls away. I think he's going to be someone that doubles down and sort of goes to new heights, which is pretty crazy in the grand scheme of things when you think about the things he's already achieved right in his career. He's going to go to another level, in my opinion. Don't know what that means, but Tim Duncan is very undervalued. Oh, maybe you're still typing. Sorry. Exactly. I've got a rookie card of his actually over here. Let me find it. Where is it? Can't find it, but I've got a rookie card that I picked up. I think it's the EX, not numbered or anything like that, but I got it for like $5 Australian or whatever it was. It's crazy the things you can get for him that's so undervalued. And again, goes to the things we already talked to. You've got these players that are proven, right? They've achieved far more than anything Luka will ever achieve, far more than anything Wemby will likely ever achieve, and the hobby doesn't value them. So just keep that stuff right in mind when you're looking to try and chase this stuff. Like, potentially, but I don't know if he's going to kick on. He could, but he looks too skinny for me. And again, he probably needs a postseason to try and put on some muscle and build into his body. He's still very young, so he needs to grow into his frame. But like, I just have a hard time putting value on prospects. I think it's insane. I don't get it, and I don't think it's really ever worked out for that many players in the long run, right? I'd like people to find me one prospect that was incredibly overpriced out the gate and is still making good money today, because it seems people just forget about it and they move on to the next prospect to try and make as much money as possible. That's a good point as well, Bob. There you go. Is $1 slabs, which is, I think, fun if you're a collector, right? Like I've talked about a few times now. You could find that stuff for cheap for your PC, put them on your shelf. You know, you're a collector, so you love that kind of crap. Others don't, and it's just insane to me how people sort of keep paying for cards to get graded when they're losing, you know, $14, $15 every time they try and then sell it. So good for us collectors, but it is what it is. So I've actually done a video on this in the past, and it's good to see you. Hope the Sevo booklet that I sold you is still going well. How accurate do you think the Australian grading companies are compared to PSA? I think CGA in the past were very accurate. I just think they're all grading far too many cards now because they're all almost part-time operations. They're not that consistent anymore. So, like, they might be accurate sometimes, but the accuracy's gone down significantly compared to what it was 5-10 years ago, in my opinion, specifically for CGA. So the recommendation would be go overseas, because it doesn't make sense to have it graded anywhere else. Even if it's for PC, you're not actually saving that much money to get it graded in Australia, or get it graded in the UK, or get it graded somewhere in Europe. Pay the extra money, get it slabbed by PSA, and then, you know, if you ever want to sell that thing, you've got the peace of mind that you're going to get your maximum value. Now, PSA, you know, do a lot of really poor things. I don't really like them, but one of the big things I've spoken about on this channel before is about me trying to buy cards and get a $0 cost base, i.e. flip stuff to fund my PC and not pay anything out of pocket. So that's the reason why I want to send things to PSA, because then if I ever do need to sell things in a hurry, I'm basically got that peace of mind that I'm not going to have to try and prove to someone why, you know, a HGA slab is okay, or why a slab from Australia or Europe is okay. Like, it's not worth the effort, and it's not worth your time, in my opinion. And that's fair point too when you're talking about cheap slabs and them basically being low pop reports and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, like, if you're a collector, just buy anything you want, right? Cheap slabs are the way to go. You get so much cool stuff for your PC. You're sort of cheering right now because you can get stuff so freaking cheap that others, you know, pass on because they don't actually care about cards, which is annoying. Yeah, exactly. So I think there's going to be a lot more of that at the National this year. I think given that, you know, PSA got through their backlog, or most of it last year, I think they're still a little bit working through, if I remember correctly. I think this year at the National, you're going to see so many junk slabs. Now, I wish I could go, so I'm really keen for people to report it back to me. But it's sort of, you know, it is what it is. You're going to see a lot of freaking cards for very, very cheap. You might even see 25-cent slabs. Who knows with the way things are going these days, right? I've actually not paid too much attention to Chelsea news lately. It's a bit hard for me to follow given, you know, the baby and all that sort of stuff. But this season, I'm really keen to sort of get back into it. I've also talked before, when it comes to some of these sports, because I'm so busy with work now, I'm somebody that has to be, you know, all in or nothing. Like, I can't just watch one game a week or sort of be a half fan. I'm not a plastic fan. I need to, you know, watch every single game. I need to be super involved in the process. So given that I can't commit the time, it's sort of hard for me to follow up in recent years, but I'm planning to sort of fix my schedule so I can, you know, watch this stuff a lot more frequently these days than I have in maybe the last year or two, because it's been a bit hard just with how life has turned up. But, you know, it is what it is. Hopefully I can make the time and get a bit more into it. The same thing goes for the NBA as well. I want to get a lot more into that this year because I've sort of fallen away the last 2 or 3. I think someone could create a market for taking sticker autos off and getting them really signed on card. P. Ryan actually did that the other day, and I've thought about that too for PC cards. It's just very frowned upon. It's weird, right? Because you even had Nat Turner come out and say maybe 3 or 4 months ago, talking about he really wishes people didn't get cards that didn't have autographs signed by the players because he thinks it's dumb. It's like, people can do what they want, right? But I think it's kind of cool. I would like to take a sticker auto off and get an on-card auto signed. I primarily try and chase on-card autos, but yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a cool thing. I've got a exactly. You wouldn't buy a jersey with sticker auto on it, and you know, I've got a 1-of-1 here that unfortunately from again Select Euro 2020, it does have a sticker auto. It is player worn, not match worn, unfortunately, and the sticker auto does annoy the crap out of me. That stuff should be on card, but it's how the hobby is these days. People don't seem to care about that enough. Bob doesn't like it. I don't mind if it's for PC, mate. Like, if you're going to be transparent with people when you go to sell it, I think that's fair. And I think most people can tell when a card is not meant to have a sticker auto or not. But if you want to do it for your PC, what's the big problem, in my opinion, as long as you disclose it when you do try and sell it down the line. P. Ryan did it, like I said the other day, and the card looked pretty sweet, in my opinion. How's it going, SoFlo Cards and Collectibles? Appreciate you giving me some insight on that Magic the Gathering stuff. The Lord of the Rings set looks really, really cool. I hope to try and get it, but it's so freaking expensive. It's just hard. I might just buy a few singles, even though I love to rip product. It's just so overpriced. From Miami, how's it going, mate? I've been to Miami. I went there on my honeymoon, actually. It was pretty cool city to hang out in, so I'm keen to go back one day. Patrick Roy and Mario, I don't know how to pronounce that surname, sorry. Rookies with rookie era autos, both of the highest grade autos and cards for each, and the autos. I think that's cool. I like that sort of stuff because it goes again to the things I spoke about maybe 15-20 minutes ago, when you're getting you know, a bit more to the story behind why you want that card. If you look at AOH Sports, he's in the last few weeks bought or last month or so, maybe even longer, started to get a lot more cards signed by the players themselves, some of these vintage cards. That stuff is cool. Getting stuff, signed and having a deeper story to why you like that thing is the whole reason why we collect cards, right? And I really wish a lot more of the story came back. So like I said at the very start, for those that missed it, I'm probably going to try and do these lives once a week, once a fortnight, and I want to talk to, things that are happening within the hobby, right? So the hobby news recaps and things like that. But more importantly, I want to try and get some guests on to talk through, some interesting things in the hobby, but then also, the stories behind why they collect certain cards, etc. So that should be pretty cool. It's just mind-boggling to me, people paying 10K of rookies these days, and it's 100%. And to make matters worse, it's also a card that, if it's got memorabilia in there, it's not associated with anyone, which goes to the post from Card Porn the other day, if you haven't seen it, where they talked about the whole situation where Cage Lawyer brought up a card that basically had a player's hat in there, but it said youth on there. That player is obviously an adult, so why has it got youth? Which I thought was a really dumb conversation, because if you flip the back of the card basically tells you exactly what it was. It's not associated with any player, team, or event or anything like that. So why are you blowing up about the fact that it's a youth hat when you should be blowing up about the fact that they're putting, shit memorabilia into our products, right? It's just crazy what people want to complain about. They're complaining about because it says youth, but they're not complaining about that the hat's fake. Like, why is the hat there in the first place? It shouldn't even be there. Who wants a piece of memorabilia for a player that is not associated with them at all? Like, what's the freaking point of that? Why is it even in the card? It's just dumb. I meant Joker cards prices being low. They're right. Yeah, I agree. His cards are so undervalued. I was shocked to see such little uptick in some of his big cards, to be honest. I say shocked. I'm also not surprised, but it is what it is. Can't wait for the summer league. LeBron worked out. Yeah, he did. But also keep in mind, LeBron is literally once in a generation for the most part. Like, he may not be the GOAT of the sport, because I think Jordan is, but he's once in a generation. He's the exception, not the rule. I'd say 99% of the prospects over the last 5 to 10 years have not panned out from an investment perspective. And I don't think that's a stretch to say, in my opinion. Great buy. So are you talking about it from like an investment perspective, or are you talking about it from a collecting perspective? Because I sort of don't really dabble into prospecting or investing at all. Like, yeah, I'll buy cards that I think are cool. Like, I've got some pretty cool one-of-ones here of on-card autos from Hall of Famers that I can't find that I'm building for a set. So in my mind, it's like, okay, if that set doesn't pan out or I choose not to keep it, I'll sell it down the line because it's cool. It's on-card auto from a Hall of Famer from a basketball perspective. But in terms of actual prospecting in the short term and investing, I don't really do a whole lot of that. I just like to do it long term, in the sense that if I'm going to spend $1,000 on a card, I want that card to give me a bit of comfort that it's still going to be worth $1,000 in 5 years' time, as an example, if not more. I think it's pretty cool to see Messi come to the US. To be honest, I think it's going to do a lot for the value of his cards, and I hope it's like a sliding doors moment for the valuation of soccer cards and the appreciation of soccer cards, I should say, long term, because you've got the next World Cup basically being hosted there and in Mexico, if I remember correctly. So Messi being there leading into a US World Cup, I think could do wonders for the appreciation of the sport. One of the things that really annoys me about soccer collecting and soccer prices is that when you look at the issues across all sports, right, prospecting is insane. Cards are so overvalued, but then you come to soccer and it's like the same thing but 10 times worse. And it primarily comes from the fact that the wrong players are priced very, very highly. And you've got proven GOATs that have done things like for the other sports not getting appreciated. And it's a hard thing to explain unless you're into detail, but it's a million times worse for soccer than it is for any other sport. And I think it comes down to the fact that it's still not super popular in America. So a lot of people that are sort of driving the prices or, thinking certain players are valuable, it's just based on a very small sample of knowledge, right? And that's not anyone's fault, right? But Messi coming in, the World Cup coming in, could change that, right? It could uplift the appreciation, make people sort of, excited about it, and then from there sort of go ahead and start placing value on the right things. It's just crazy. We saw an interview I shared in my story the other day from one of the news shows in America where they talked about Messi coming in, and they were complaining about the fact that he couldn't speak English, right? And they basically said he needs to learn English because David Beckham, when he came to America, he learned English even though he ended up using an accent. And it's like, guys, in England, people speak English, right? And that goes to the naivety, in my opinion, of, also some of the things that drive the prices in soccer. People that don't actually, truly understand the world game. And I'm not hating on Americans or anything like that. So please don't come at me. But I think you guys get the gist of what I'm trying to say. It's not anyone's fault. They just have limited knowledge because perhaps the sport is not, shown there that often. They're not in the detail with the culture of the sport. But Messi coming, World Cup being there, I think is going to change that. And it's really exciting because, from a US perspective, they're the global hub for major sports, right? So I think it could go to a new level internationally as well off the back of that in terms of card prices and appreciation and all that sort of stuff, which is, pretty freaking crazy and exciting. I should say, not crazy. So I'm keen to look forward to that. We've got Bob Boozle here again. I'm where 1% that doesn't care about sticker autos. They don't fade as easily. And that's fair as well. But I think at the same time, you can't begrudge anyone for sort of, not liking a sticker auto, maybe wanting to get on-card auto. Like, you can do whatever you want to your own cards, I think is the general message here, but it just matters that when you go to sell it, disclose it, right? Don't pretend it's an on-card auto. Don't pretend you haven't cleaned the card, all that sort of stuff. We've got SoFlo cards and collectibles again. Collector's Dream, I know, man, you filmed my table at, I'm assuming that's the Florida show before. We have the one-of-one Kanye. That's pretty cool. I'm really keen to try and get to a show in the States soon. Which sport card do you think is the next big boom in Australia? It's hard to say. So Australia is, because we've got a lot of expats and post-World War II, we had a lot of immigrants come here from, essentially all over the world. We're pretty diverse as a country. I'd say we're probably the most diverse country in the world. And that might be an ignorant statement to make, but just based on what I've seen growing up and living here, right? So when it comes to sports, almost everything is appreciated really well. Now, soccer is quite big here in Australia, internationally. We don't really appreciate our local league as much, but people have a lot of knowledge when it comes to European leagues and South American leagues and all that sort of stuff. F1 is also quite big here. So it's probably hard to say what's going to boom next. Hockey, I'd say, is definitely underappreciated. Like, not many people talk about it. I'm not sure why, but when it comes to other sports like, NBA, NFL, that's hugely popular in Australia. Like, I think if you are not aware and you come to Australia, you're going to be shocked at about, how passionate people are about this, because we are, like I said, very diverse, very cultural relevant with all this sort of stuff, and we are sport mad, right? We love all sports. We're very competitive at everything we do when it comes to, sports on a global scale. So sort of everything is already, appreciated well from our country's perspective. Maybe hockey not, but that's probably one of the ones that can pick up. But again, that's probably the one that's not super relevant in terms of cultural knowledge and all that sort of stuff. Not sure what that comment is. It happens also often every year. I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Sorry, I'm a bit delayed on the comments. On auto, on like Jordan rookie is a really good idea. I agree. And again, I'm not going to begrudge anyone for getting an auto signed. He probably won't sign it, right? Because doesn't he have he doesn't sign them anymore, if I remember correctly. Or maybe I'm wrong. Someone correct me from in the comments. Upper Deck did put stickers on mini jerseys they put in packs. They fall off all the time, some before the pack was ripped. You also have issues with some stickers I've seen recently where the autos are already starting to fade, which is pretty concerning. I don't think any of the graders, now someone can correct me if I'm wrong, use UV protect slabs. I don't think any of them do that. Maybe just Tag do. Maybe it's only Tag. But that should go a long way to protecting these kinds of things. I'm shocked that there's no one out there doing this for every single, slab, right? It just seems a bit weird. I think the slab mags that people use also do it, but it is an interesting one to try and be aware of. Zion, LaMelo, Cade, Chet, every big name nearly has an injury first year of late, exactly. And I think the thing with Wemby is because he's so skinny, he could get hurt really quickly in this league, right? Because he's not playing against, small guys in Europe, even though there's big boys out that way, but like the guys that are playing in the NBA are freaking Terminators, right? So you could get one bump and then he could be gone. His legs could go under him like a baby giraffe or something along those lines. Lord of the Rings collector boxes for sure. Just buy the cards you like. The panorama stuff would be cool for any Lord of the Ring collector. For those of you that are, fans of Lord of the Rings, Magic the Gathering did like a collab release for, a recent set. It's themed Lord of the Rings, obviously, and the cards look crazy. It's really exciting. If you're a fan of that sort of stuff. I don't play Magic the Gathering. I've stayed sort of close. I've got a finger on the pulse of how things move in that hobby through the likes of Alpha Investments. But this set looks really cool. It's just a shame the hobby boxes are like $600 Australian, which is crazy. I think they need to make high-end products for Australian sports like NRL, which is the National Rugby League, which is the league that my team Parramatta Eels play in. They like to come with Immaculate and NT. I think we will. So for those of you that are based in the States, like I touched on a bit earlier, Australia are really big on collecting as well. We love our sports, so we're huge on collecting. If you come here to a card show, you're going to see some big cards that you probably wouldn't have seen before, given how passionate some people are. a lot of Aussies are still very much set collectors, so it hasn't really taken off from an investing perspective yet, like it has in the States. Like it has a little bit, but not a whole lot. So there's still room to grow from that perspective. I'd like to see more high-end product. Like what we're seeing right now from an NRL perspective is not high-end enough. I think it's quite poor. What Select do for the AFL is pretty high-end. I think it's called AFL Supremacy. Pretty cool-looking cards, essentially right up there with Flawless, in my opinion, for those of you in the US. But I think, I'll say this now, I would not be surprised, mate, if Topps acquire the license for the NRL at some point. So stay tuned for that, because I think that's genuinely a possibility of happening in the next few years. Now, I'm not sure when TLAs who make Elite, and I know the US guys are probably confused right now, but it's the high end set for that rugby league. I'm not sure when the license expires, but I wouldn't be surprised if Topps come in and try and nab it like they did the NBL. Walmart had a ton of Lord of the Rings cards. Yeah, they're probably the blasters and stuff like that, where you don't really get anything cool in them. But if you like the look of the cards, there's no reason why you shouldn't be buying those. So I've never actively pursued or supported a Serie A team. I would always support the national team, and that's just because my heritage comes from all over Italy. So I don't want to offend one side of the family over the other. But in terms of probably the team that would be closest to where relatives grew up and are from in Italy, it'd probably be Inter Milan would be the one. But again, I've never really picked one team over the other. I found it was too competitive. I had too many to pick from. I didn't want to piss off one uncle over the other, so I just went with sort of appreciating Roma, Juventus, Inter, and I know that's sacrilegious, but sometimes those are the things you need to do. It's an interesting one. I think a lot of people seem to think Panini will get acquired by Fanatics. I don't know. I think they might turn around and still produce unlicensed cards. That's where I think they might be going, just based on some of the whispers I'm hearing. But again, I'm just a nobody from Australia, so who knows if I'm, right or wrong. The commander decks, basically, is what I was just talking to. Let's see if we can jump through a few comments, because I probably only got 5 to 10 minutes left. I can hear my daughter crying in the background, so I need to give my wife a hand. For PC, to save some money on rookies, I really don't mind a rookie card in a college uniform. I have an Evan Mobley National Treasures booklet out of 5 with the Pack 12 patch, or PSA, is that the Pacific 12? Is that what it is? And player worn for a fraction of Pro UD card. Again, that's a really cool thing to do, right? If you are a collector, right, that stuff also goes to the same sort of narrative. I'm pretty sure, I mentioned Steve Splendor a few times, I'm pretty sure he's got some college KD Flawless cards, if I'm correct. Maybe I'm getting confused, but it all goes to the same story, right? If you appreciate that player, or you support that team, or you're from that region, things like, pro uniform stuff, or lack of pro uniform stuff, so it's just college uniform or even high school, that's pretty cool, in my opinion, right? That's the stuff that you want to try and get to your PC. So who cares what other people say when it comes to valuation of those kinds of things, right? It sort of is what it is. So I agree with you on that one. Yeah, and that's true, Bob. And that's what I was saying about, Messi coming in. They don't care about soccer, but if you've got Messi coming in, every single one of his away games for the MLS have already sold out, right? That's really big for the league. And if that passion can maintain, and he sort of becomes a bit more of a presence when it comes to the cultural piece, so maybe doing talk shows and getting more involved in the community, which he might not do because he can be a bit stubborn sometimes, I think could do a lot for that league in the appreciation of the support long term. The same thing with the World Cup being over there as well. I think it's going to be for the league long term, or the sport long term. So Wemby's only 12 pounds lighter than when Giannis was a rookie. He could bulk up. Maybe, yeah, he could, but he just looks like a giraffe. I don't mean that. He just looks way too skinny. He just looks like one fall, and he could be in a bloody hospital bed for 12 months. So I hope it's not the case, but it is what it is. What's my number one PC card? It sort of changes all the time, to be honest. I don't get overly attached to my cards, just because I've talked to this before. So I grew up quite poor, so I have a hard time for cards to be valuable. So it always changes, because sometimes things might come up in life and I need to sell them, so I don't want to get too attached. It's probably some of my flawless soccer stuff, to be honest. I picked up a pretty cool Andrea Pirlo, 9 of 10, not 1 of 1. I wish it was a 1 of 1. Gold Mem Auto, pretty cool card. BGS, you can see it on my Instagram page. I'm rambling now, but that's probably the number one for me at the moment. But it always changes, right? Because I go through phases, as I'm sure many of you do. Like those Dragon Ball Z stuff, there's some gold inserts of those that were my favorite cards because I had them as a kid, but it always changes. So it's always good to have different things to chase, because you also get bored when you're collecting, right? You want to PC something, you sort of get bored when like you're chasing something, so you want to move on to something different. So it's always good to have different tastes and move to different things and all that sort of stuff, because that's how you keep the passion going, right? We all go through phases, so it is what it is. Yeah, you reach out to get comments, man. Awesome, good on you. Yes, and that was helpful from you, if I remember correctly. You mentioned that in one of the comments, so I do appreciate that. I reached out to BGS, Panini, and PWCC. So far, PWCC is the only one that's responded. How's it going, mate? From Adelaide, love the channel. Thank you for the support. Any tips or upcoming videos on how to operate in the US market, returning to the hobby? There's so much to get your head around. Ship my cards, US eBay. You know, I think if you are located outside the States and you want to buy cards, you know, ship my cards is the way to go. I don't really use ComC. I primarily buy everything through eBay or some of these auction sites. It is very tough, but ship my cards is going to save you so much freaking money. I've probably saved, I don't want to talk about how much money I've saved because it's a lot. My wife's sort of in the other room, so she'll hear it. But it's sort of the way to go. So again, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. If you want to ask some questions offline, send me a DM on Instagram. I'm happy to help. But ship my cards is the way to go, even though they've raised their fees in the last month or so, and the new fees are ridiculous. There's really not that many other services that operate as good as them, in my opinion. So hit me up in the DMs, and I'm happy to talk through it. Appreciate the shout out once again, mate. It's sort of the right thing to do, in my opinion. Like, I'm not someone to sort of hate on these businesses without getting a response from them. Like, if they give me a response, I'm still going to hate on them, right? Like, I'm still going to hold them accountable. But I think we as collectors and we as participants in this hobby need, you know, responses from the likes of PSA, from the likes of PWCC, from the likes of some of these influencers, right? And by having the communication with them and being open and transparent about it, it helps hold them accountable, which means they can then, moving forward, maybe not make the same mistake, or maybe try and improve their process so we as customers get a better outcome. So it sort of is what it is. I think it's the right thing to do. It's just something it's just natural for me to want to do that. So it's good to see that it is appreciated. Well, that's if Zion ever plays again, right? Zion looks like he's freaking Joe with a heart at the moment. It's like the complete opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Zion could give Wemby like maybe 20% of his body fat, and then Wemby would be solid enough to play in the league and get all the questions removed from him, and then Zion would be back to his best as well. So it's a pretty funny one. But imagine if he fouls Wemby, like, mate, it could be some pretty bad outcomes. He could be in the hospital for a long time. I think that's fair, but I think so Messi's on another level, like completely on another level. Like Beckham, fantastic player, but outside of the US, Beckham was never really treated as high of a level as what the US put him on from a pedestal perspective. Yeah, cultural relevance, Beckham is sort of second to none when it comes to soccer players. But in terms of like playing power and playing capabilities and all that sort of stuff, Beckham was never really, like, he was very good, right? I don't want to say he's not a superstar or anything like that, but Messi is so far on another level, you can't even compare the two. So I think that piece could be, could do everything. And again, you are right that he probably did shift the needle a little bit, but you got to remember that Messi's coming in and he's leading into a World Cup. That's a lot of exposure for the sport that I think could do a lot of benefit if they sort of you know, want it to happen, right? And I think it'd be really cool for card collecting long term. The pillows are dope. Thank you. I do appreciate that. Yeah, and I guess that's fair as well. But like I said, these guys coming in could change the game. Do you PC any Pokemon cards? I've actually got some here. Actually, give me one sec. So I'm working on a Jungle first edition set for my daughter. This was always my favorite set as a kid when it came to collecting. I remember ripping this a heck of a lot. So I won't show them all now because the picture's a bit blurry, but I've got a stack here. I'm working on the set in PSA 9. So all first edition PSA 9 Jungle Pokemon from 1999. I want to get the full set for that for my daughter, and then I'll probably work on the fossil set next, and then maybe even the OG set. But I'm a collector, so I like building sets. So I'm just going to focus on one set at a time, and then when I get a bit bored of that, I might move on to something different. We've got Bob Denver. Again, people in US think soccer is boring and they don't get the best athletes. And that's, again, fair. But it's sort of the same sort of issue here in Australia, right, where the A-League doesn't really get the best athletes. It's more seen as a stepping stone for our youth players to try and, you know, kick on and go to Europe and then better their careers. But again, the MLS it could be a big league one day, depending on the amount of investment and things like that. But I'm really excited to see what Messi going into Messi joining, and then a few years later, the World Cup kicking off in the US could do a lot for the sport, and I don't think that can be understated or emphasized enough, I should say. I think it's a really cool thing for the sport in your country, and it should be really exciting if you are a fan of the game or like to collect those cards, because it might mean we're going to see a lot more value as collectors moving forward, because they're going to produce more goods. But then as well, people are going to be more excited about it, which means that you've got more people to talk to about, collecting and the sport in general. Bobby Dice, I get what you're saying about your collector taste changing over time. I don't get bored very easily. There are a handful of cards that would have to be starving before I sold. And that's the same for me with a few. Like there's like this Dragon Ball Z card over here. It's a clear chase card from a Series 4 art box set, which was the least produced set. These chase cards are quite hard to get, so excited to have that in my collection. Like, yes, there are some that I'll probably never sell, but because I've grown up and gone through my parents getting bankrupt and all that sort of stuff, and I don't want to get into too much personal details now. When I was a kid, I've learned that you should never say never, and lots of things can happen sometimes that are unexpected. And at the end of the day, family comes first. So whilst I would never like to sell these things, if it meant I needed to sell them in order to put food on the table, then like you just said, you have to be starving before you sold them. And I probably agree. Tastes do change, and my point about taste changing was less about not liking it anymore, so I'm going to sell it. Was more about if I'm passionate about that Italy rainbow that I've just showed you, right? If I'm finding it hard to get the last few cards, I might take a break from specifically chasing them, and then I might start chasing something else in that stead. That's what I meant about going through phases and changing opinions and things like that. Definition of essence. Well, my community had Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and they did not change anything. And I don't want to talk too much into that detail because I don't know too much about it, to be honest, but maybe they did, maybe they didn't, I don't know. Maybe you can clarify that for me in the comments down below. Soccer's slowly growing here in the US. Again, it is, and I think it's a good thing compared to where it was 10, 15 years ago. And I just don't want to underestimate the power that, or the influence Messi has, or that World Cup is going to have. Upbox DBZ are my fave. I'm right there with you. I've got a bunch of gold foils from childhood. I've got so the Upbox sets was something I collected as a kid, and I loved that stuff. I used to think the gold cards came in the packs and they were really rare, but it turns out there's retail and hobby packs. So I've now got the full set from every single series that Artbox produced for the English sets. I think the gold cards look amazing, especially Series 2, which are the ones you can see, there. They're just the gold version of them. I think I've got some here actually. Give me 1 second. I've got cards everywhere, guys. So you can sort of see some of them here, but again, it's hard to see with the glare, but they're cool looking cards. Very cheap. They're not really that rare, which is disappointing, but at the end of the day, you can find them for affordable prices, and that's what you want when you're a collector, right? It'd be nice to have them be worth a lot more money, but they're just overprinted, unfortunately. Not like Pokemon from the 90s where things were rare. Big soccer contracts are in Europe, so they get the best players, which makes America's soccer not as good. Yes, definitely. I think that's something that could change in the long run. There's a lot more money in Europe, but don't be surprised if you start seeing some more players come to the US. If, for example, Messi does well and the World Cup does well, and then we get big investments into the MLS, you might see some of these players coming younger. But at the end of the day, these guys want to go to Europe because that's where the best players are. They want to test themselves. I think it's more about testing themselves than about the money, because if it was truly about the money, you'd see a lot of the good players go to China, and then also the Middle East, where there's top dollar. We sort of saw that happen a little bit, maybe 5-6 years ago, where a lot of players in the Premier League went to China, but it just failed in the end because I guess they didn't like the culture shift. They didn't like the level of competitiveness in the league, and you've seen less and less people go to China, which is sort of like a flash in the pan kind of thing. Yeah, the Dragon Ball Z cards are sick. These 4 clear cards right here, I'm actually going to get them graded because I think they are pretty good condition, but you can see I've got the 3 Super Saiyans there, which is definitely the rarest one of them all. You then got Goku over here. Again, a bit hard to see. And the Trunks is the 3rd one. Sorry about the glare. And then this cool one of Super Saiyan Vegeta, which I think the Vegeta and the 3 Saiyans sell for upwards of $300 USD each. They're quite rare. They're one of the few that Artbox released that is actually rare in my opinion. And that's a good point as well. With Messi coming, MLS could lift the player salary restrictions to get better players. I think that's probably what they're banking on. So it's really cool to see him generate more revenue for the league because, like I said a bit earlier, all the away tickets for every away game have already sold out, right? So if he's coming in and uplifting it from that perspective, and then the World Cup comes and it sort of kicks it onto the next level, maybe more money comes in from an investment perspective, which means salary cap gets lifted, which means then you can actually sign some cooler players. Yeah, those clear cards are pretty cool. I want to get them graded because I think the pop reports are quite low on those, and mine look very, very good. The only issue is they've got some like surface scratching on there because they are acetate cards, which is how they come out of the pack. So, theoretically, I know PSA and BGS will sometimes grade cards and factor in, factory defects as being part of the card, which I think they should in this instance. So if they did, they should be graded PSA 10s based on what I've seen. But given how inconsistent they are, given the approach they've taken in recent years, I think they'll probably end up as like PSA 8s or something. But again, who cares? They're PC cards. They're for my shelf. Definitely plenty of good soccer. I agree. Looks like I've caught up on all the comments. I might end it there to go give my wife a hand with the baby. Like I sort of said at the start, these are going to be quite common now. I think I'm going to try and do these every fortnight. I'll get guests on as well to talk through collecting and all that sort of stuff. I just want to, get a bit more in touch with you guys as viewers and communicate and talk through the comments. Like I covered a few news items for the first 15-20 minutes, and then the rest has been all Q&A, which is pretty cool. My first live stream, hopefully it went well, and I figured out what the heck I'm doing. I got to fix a few things, like when I share my screen, freaking StreamYard logo covers my face. What are your thoughts on 2021 Topps Chrome F1? Like I think it's overvalued, and if you're a fan, buy it and collect it. But it's just so overhyped. Like, the thing I've talked to, actually, I'll go on one mini rant now before I leave. So one of the things I've talked to about some of these newer sports that have had cards produced that people have confused, right? If you've looked at, you're a fan of NFL and you've seen Topps F1 get released, and you're like in your mind, well, Topps F1 Chrome, that's super cheap. I'm going to buy it because if I look at the comparison for basketball, it's really expensive. So I'm going to buy it because it's undervalued. So then everybody starts doing the same sort of thing, and then the price gets pushed to the freaking moon. When in reality, nobody cares about Topps. Like, nobody historically cared about F1 cards. They were always cheap things. And yes, things weren't always produced, but you're not going to change the cultural relevance for cards for those kinds of collectors, right? And I think I just talked in circles. I've done a video on this, but it probably goes easier if we talk to, like, soccer players. Okay, let's use soccer players as an example. You've got somebody that, looking at soccer, you want to invest in soccer, and you're seeing the prices, and you're saying, well, goalkeepers are so underrated. I like goalkeepers, so I'm going to go ahead and pay big money for a goalkeeper card because why is his goalkeeper card, why is his 1 of 1 so much cheaper than the striker's 1 of 1? And it's like, well, the cultural relevance for that sport has always preferred, attacking players over goalkeepers. You're not going to change that in the last couple of years and overnight because you think goalkeepers are underrated. Goalkeepers are perfectly rated, and they have been for 100 years that people have followed the sport, right? People appreciate goalkeepers, but they don't appreciate them as much as a striker, because strikers are entertaining and all that sort of stuff. And yes, there are exceptions here and there, but you get the point of what I'm trying to say. You've got these new sports coming in and people paying top dollar for them in the hope that it's going to become as relevant as a different sport, or they're chasing a specific position in a sport, maybe pitchers over batters in baseball. They're chasing them, or certain like a punter in NFL over a quarterback, right? You might really like a punter, but you're not going to pay more for him than a quarterback because over the 100 years that the sport's been played, people have preferred quarterbacks because they're more exciting. Like, you're not going to change it overnight, and you're not going to change the cultural relevance that player has, that position has, that team has, that sport has, when it hasn't really shifted anything over the last 100 years. And I'm talking in circles now, but you guys get what I'm saying. I'm exhausted, so I apologize. Thanks, mate. Good to have you here. Appreciate it. You too, mate. Good Arvo. I'm going to watch some footy. Rewatch the Parramatta game from yesterday. Not the second half. Watch the first half because we dominated, but that was good to watch. Good job with the live stream. Keep up what you're doing. Appreciate the support, mate. Hockey's the same. Goal scorers. Exactly. And that's the thing, right? It's like people can prospect all they want, but players and positions have been cultural relevant before cards are even made, right? People, as fans, like those things over others. You're not going to change it overnight because you think a card's undervalued, and you're not going to change it, and your group of mates is not going to change it if you want to flip them at card shows. Because what happens between these flippers, they flip the same cards between each other, and none of them ever end up in the hands of a collector. And the collectors are the ones that realize the value of a card, right? If a collector's not paying that money, it shouldn't be a real comp, in my opinion, because you're just flipping it between people that don't give two shits about that card in the first place. So that's another tangent, but it is what it is. Yeah, Pele, Ronaldo, Messi, you've got Brazilian Ronaldo, Ronaldinho. There's so many players. Like people my age, I'm 33, having grown up to watch the sport in the 90s and the 2000s, I think that was the best era of soccer in my opinion, especially when it comes to midfielders and the competitive nature of it. Like in that period, you've had Messi, Ronaldo, Pirlo, Lampard, Gerrard, Xavi. I can't even think of the names right now, but I'm sure I could list off 50 names just in the midfield alone that are far better than anyone that has played in recent years, and we're just really privileged, and I'm shocked to see so many of those players have their cards undervalued. It's insane to me. So I think that's sort of it. One thing I do want to clarify once again, give me 1 second as I just jump my screen again. So for those of you that joined quite late, I just want to reiterate this once again before I do decide to leave. Is we spoke about this duplicate card early on in the week, and how it appeared there was a few questions over this because the one on top had been sold on PwCC's platform in August last year for $35,000, and then Pool Bangers hit this card in a break last week. And for those of you wondering why I said the logo on my face earlier today, I don't know how to get rid of it. I have to stand over here, so I do apologize. But basically, we had lots of questions on this, right? We determined whether or not this one was fake, or was this one fake, or whatever. Did Panini make two one-of-ones? Who knows? We saw the same sort of thing happen again with Lamar Jackson. Now, this is interesting because I'll reiterate again, there's only meant to be one-of-one there's only meant to be one shield per player per insert in this set. So the logic that Panini had made a mistake seemed a bit concerning. One thing I did clarify in my first video that you're meant to have a team logo of one-of-one, and that's meant to be blue. You then have a red one-of-one, and that's the shield, and then you have another red one-of-one, and that's the laundry tag, right? So we thought maybe they made two shields and didn't make the laundry tag. Well, as came to light in the last few days, is the laundry tag was found, and surprise, surprise, it was in the blue foil. And this is interesting because it's meant to be in the red foil, and literally every single other player in this set has the tag on the red foil. So what I think happened is Panini accidentally put the team logo into this card right here, and then somebody switched on to the fact that the team logo was in the red card when it was meant to be on the blue card, and they basically patch swapped it out and put a fake shitty shield in there. And that's where my logic is right now. I've reached out to PwCC. They've gotten back to me. They're going to give us a response on this. So I'll update you guys when I do hear more. But I just wanted to give that update before I did leave, because I think it's, an important one. And it's something we just need to keep front of mind when this stuff does pop up, right? Because there's many different avenues that this stuff can go down, whether it be, patch swap, fake card in general. Did Panini produce two? So sort of is what it is. But that's it. I'll update you when PwCC get back to me. Hopefully that made sense. If it didn't, maybe just quickly shoot me a comment now and I can clarify something a bit further. But yeah, that's where things are at right now. So I'll give you an update when PwCC get back to me, because it looks like we might have one in the next week or so, I want to say. Kind of like the duck hanging over your shoulder. Yes, so do I. I need to fix that. I need to put my camera somewhere else for the live stream. There's a few quirks I need to work through, but hopefully the live stream went okay, and I appreciate you all, sticking with me for the last hour and 20 minutes. Lots of good dialogue, lots of good questions, and I hope to try and do it a bit more frequently, because I talk about this all the time on the channel. Part of the reason why I make the videos, or probably the main reason actually, is to communicate with you all in the comments. If you guys comment on my channel, you know that I respond to literally 99% of them. So this is a good way for me to have that chat with you guys moving forward. So that's sort of it. I hope you liked the video. I will see you next time. Cheers.